I'm Wesley Lowry, journalist with CBS News and GQ Magazine, and I'm here to talk with the cast and the production team behind that powerful scene from what was one of the most powerful films we saw this year, King Richard. I'm joined now by Will Smith, Anjanou Ellis, as well as production designer Wynn Thomas, composer Chris Bowers, and editor Pamela Martin, in addition to director Reinaldo Marcus Green. I'm really excited for this conversation with such a talented panel of people who helped show us that powerful film from a really important set of lives.
Don't get to have dinner before you go to sleep.
No, ma'am.
What's going on? Everybody okay?
They got a call, said there was trouble in the house and that we were being rough with the girls and they needed to look.
A call from who?
Not at liberty to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You all need to look around. Go ahead, you can check on in the cupboards. Maybe you can go check under the beds, make sure it's no monsters.
It's a little wet for practice, don't you think? Don't the girls have schoolwork to do?
They do their homework. Tundi's first in her class. Lynn and Isha are too.
That's right. Girls, spell civilization.
Civilization.
Okay, Mr. Williams,
Wait,
this
now,
is
hold on,
really
hold
not
on.
necessary.
Hold on. You want to check on the kids? Let's check on the kids.
I wanted to go to you first, Ray. I wanted to ask you about how this scene fits into the story that King Richard tells.
Look, I think the Williams family, faced a lot of adversity by virtue of where they lived, how they were raised, where they grew up. And this scene sort of highlights how much, even no matter how hard you're working, two parents, a mom that's working full time, dad going to the court, all the things that we're facing in their life, and they still have to come home to someone else peering into their house. So I think all of that going into this scene is so important because we've already set up the world in which they live in which we're taking our characters through this space. And now this is sort of icing on the cake. How low can it possibly get? This is as high as it gets when it comes to, to that kind of drama.
Now, Will, what do we need to know about Richard Williams to understand him in this moment? And also some of the work you did to get into his head, to figure out how he operated and what he would have been thinking that propelled this performance in this moment.
Richard Williams is very, very similar to my father. That post-World War II Black man with a dream coming out of the South and coming to the North specifically for a different kind of experience. So in terms of, being devoted and dedicated to your children and continually finding obstacles to being the kind of father that you want to be. I personally had an experience, Jada and I were reported someone said that we weren't feeding Willow. So we came home and the sheriffs were, going through stuff. They want to interview the kids and all of that. So I understand like that fury. There's an insult to your manhood when men walk in your house with guns to check on how you treating your kids. So it was a very emotional scene for me. It's like, the first couple takes, I couldn't stop crying. I had to settle myself, down a little bit, but it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
We got future doctors and lawyers, plus a couple tennis stars in this house. Now, I understand you got to do your job, even if some crazy-ass neighbor do call talking foolishness. And I don't even mind you saying we hard on these kids. You know why? Because we are. That's our job, to keep them off these streets. You want to arrest us for that? Fine, but what you're not gonna never do is come knock on this door talking about you had to blow their damn brains out in them streets because they running with hoodlums and doing drugs and things. That's what you not never gonna say in this house. You want to arrest us for that? That's fine. You need to be arresting them parents at them tennis matches. That's who need to be getting arrested.
And this film, even as it's titled King Richard about Richard Williams, really is a film and a story about the partnership between two parents. We see the role Oracene plays in their life as a protector, as a parent. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship and how you reported it out as you prepared to play it and portray it?
I remember that night, so specifically. I remember the air. I remember how cold it was. We shot the exterior first, and then it was much later, if I'm remembering this correctly, it was much later that we shot the interior scene with the social worker and the detectives. And what I loved about both times was just that there was no back and forth between Will and myself. It is a little something animal about it, like a bit of hive mind that kind of, that took over. And I kind of felt that way in many instances with working, with those moments of Oracene and Richard when we had to come in defense of our children.
And how do you, in the storytelling here, how do you figure out the balance of things you're going to have to do to make it work storytelling wise versus how letter and verse, well, actually, literally on this day, Venus said this and then Serena did this. How do you, in some ways, dramatize and fictionalize a true story?
Isha Price, the Venus and Serena's sister, was on set every single day. So we started with what actually happened, and we didn't find ourselves, having to fictionalize much in this scene. We were lucky and blessed to have the family that was walking us through scene by scene to maintain the authenticity.
Richard is the one interacting, but then there's a moment where she walks out and she walks across the street. Can you talk about her as a mother in that moment and what you're portraying as you have that conversation with another mother?
Yeah, I think you hit it. It was a mother-to-mother conversation, which is very different from a father-to-mother conversation, because there is this ocean that we both traverse and swim, in very similar ways, as opposed to a man and a woman. I think that silence, but there's also that clear and clarity of intention that was there. And I just think that that's their dance. I think that's the Richard and Oracene dance.
Hey, where you going?
I'll be back. Hey, Betty.
Oracene,
I've never been over here before.
you haven't.
That's a shame.
It is.
Will, can you talk about the importance of that partnership between the parents and also about the conversations you all had with members of the family?
Right. A clear indication of the power of Miss Oracene, and sitting and talking with her, she doesn't say a lot. She's quiet 90% of the time. And when she talks, it's a sledgehammer on the nail, and then she goes back to chilling again, watching, observing.
I know you know how hard it is raising a daughter. I have 5 of them. 5. Don't make me come back over here again.
There's a really unique strength that Ingenue was able to capture. There's like a foundational power that just gets set in the scene that everything and everyone else springs off of. It's a beautiful thing to watch, and Ingenue is a magnificent dance partner.
Well, as we know, the making of a scene like that, part of it is the acting and the brilliance of it, but a big part of it is how a scene is actually constructed. And so I wanted to go to you, Pamela, to ask you how you put a scene like this together.
I approach it like any emotional scene, which is kind of giving honor to everybody's points of view or experience within the scene. I can see from what Miss Oracene is going through right from the beginning when they walk in the door that she's pissed, and she's also sort of resigned. Like this is something that maybe she's lived before or just understands well from her life experience. You've got the fear and the upset of these young girls. And then obviously there's, what Richard is going through and his anger. At the end of the day, like we felt like we could get that arc of the anger bubbling up to kind of the explosion of not only why he's parenting the way he is, but I love how he throws in that little zinger at the end of all these events they've been going to and the bad behavior he's seen from other people's children and other people's parenting. And so, you're putting it together and you have to get all of these moments for them all to click and sort of get that full experience. And I think by going around the room in that way, you really see that.
I wanted to ask Chris about the score, because in those moments of silence, we're hearing the kind of emotional soundtrack at the back, and it's placing us in Richard's head, in Oracene's head, in the head of these children, these young girls. Chris, how do you go about thinking about a scene like this?
Personally, my process really stems a lot from my background as a jazz pianist, where I'm first and foremost an accompanist, right? And like usually what I do is I watch through a scene without any music and just watch it to see how it makes me feel. You're seeing this anger from Richard in this moment, but also at the same time, his eyes are welling up with tears and emotion, and seeing that emotion from Richard, seeing the emotion from these girls, even like seeing some of them cry, and then also Oracene later. Those are the things that naturally I'm feeling just watching it. And so then I usually go to the piano and try to find something that can make me feel that way or feel some of those emotions. By the time we worked on the scene, I already had Richard's theme, so I was able to use his theme. It's really subtle, but the string line you're hearing is actually his theme, really stretched out and slowed down and created, a different harmony there. And the first iteration of it, I actually did do a little bit too much. I mean, it was still trying to keep it as subtle as possible, but I remember the first version of it, Ray and Pam were like, I think we can simplify even more. We can take, even more out. With a scene like this, it really is just following what's happening and trying to make sure that I'm supporting it as best as possible.
Will, the words that Richard says in this scene, where he's talking about and really laying out in many ways what drives him as a parent, can you speak to in that moment what Richard is thinking and what it says about how he saw himself as a father?
Richard had a very specific dream and vision that Miss Oracene agreed with 96%. It demanded a certain means. It demanded a certain type of hard work and attention. But at the center of it was love. And that was the thing that they were betting on. And the world is telling them, oh, you're pushing them too hard, that your behavior is crazy. And they're looking at the insanity of this world and the hypocrisy of it, and the how dare you is part of the center of this scene. You're the same jokers that'll be shooting them down in the streets. Like, how dare you? The scene really captured that aspect beautifully.
Is this something that really happened?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
When so much of this film takes place in this family's home and in the world that they occupied, can you talk to me about how you constructed this world? And then secondarily, how you constructed this home where all these intimate moments were going to take place?
So many of the choices that I made had an impact on the scene. If you look at the size of the house, for example, the size of the house, the interior of the house is very, very small, which means that once you get all these people in there, it's like they can't they're like trying to negotiate the space. And because they can't negotiate the space, it helps with the creation of the tension in this particular scene. When Oracene crosses that street, the audience goes, oh, they all get very excited about what's about to happen. And if the block had been too large, that tension would not have been there. And then the other thing that we're doing is that we're really providing the viewer with a sense of who these people are and how they lived. But not only are we doing that for the viewer, we're also doing that for the actors, because the actors come into that home and they have to live there. Well, as a designer, I make sure that I fill up all the spaces, which I hope are character details or informing the actors who their characters are.
In many ways, I think this scene captures a lot of the themes of the movie about the difficulty facing Richard and Oracene in raising these girls, about the criticism they were receiving, again, not just from the white tennis parents, but even from some people in their neighborhood, in their world. What is the story that King Richard tells us about Black families and about the story of Venus and Serena Williams?
Anjana, you want to go?
I'll go right quick. Well, first, I mean, I listening to these other artists on this panel, Ms. Martin and Mr. Thomas and Mr. Bowers, I want to say thank you, because you made my job much easier. So I really, really appreciate that. And, I just think so much. I'm glad that Will brought up this question of, people coming from the South and going north, which is what my family did, leaving Mississippi and going to Chicago and Milwaukee and Detroit. It promised that you could once again, or have some semblance of control over your life, some design over your destiny. And so when you are a family like the Williams family, own their own homes, went to work every day, did all the right things, and here comes some element in the world that will cut you off at the shins. I just feel it's just one of these moments in this film that's larger, that's larger than the Williams family. And I think that the reason that I say that is because I know the response I get from other families who watched this movie over Thanksgiving weekend and felt reflected by it. And I say this all the time that, the Williams family are extraordinary, but they're not rare. What's rare is our chance to see that.
Yeah, and look, I gotta give a big shout out to Zach Balan, who wrote this script, and he gave us an incredible blueprint, and an insight and window into the Williams life, and then to be magnified in this particular moment, that's a big tip of a cap to Zach. I think this particular scene, when you talk about themes and you think about this family and all that they have to overcome, look, they're raising champions, right? We already know that Venus and Serena have gotten to the level that they are, but we don't understand how they got there. But they did it with this love and commitment. And what I love so much about what Will and Anjanou and the girls do in this scene is that it doesn't lose. It's not angry Black woman growing across the street. And there's a fine line, right? There's a fine line between being angry, and she really is. She's pissed. But she's so poised, she's so composed. And I think the Williams raised their girls in a way that never allowed their emotions to get the best of them. They were going places that no one else was willing or able to go. And it's because of how they were raised. It was because of moments like this and how they conducted themselves within these moments and within these spaces. But yeah, the performances and everything that you see before you is a testament to this family and how they inspired us to help tell their story. So thank you to the Williams family as well.
What a powerful conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, I'm Wesley Lowry, and I'm so glad we were able to talk about that powerful scene from the movie King Richard.
Thank you all. Thank you.